Hello and good evening. Welcome to Hanovi Global Network. I am your host, John Hanovi, and tonight, without hesitation, we are going to expose some of the most dirtiest tricks used by so-called established journalist networks. We are going to expose some of the dirtiest tricks used by long established institutions of journalism that should at least have some sense of credibility and know better. But these people are not interested in truth, nor are they interested in integrity, but are some of the most devious partisan media outlets. To borrow an expression from Biden's 1994 Crime Bill Act speech, these media outlets are beyond the pale, absolutely beyond the pale, irredeemable. But before I delve into the actions of these propagandists, let me give you the definition of what a bloodbath is. In the annals of business, the term bloodbath is used to refer to a situation that is so severe that it can only be described as a bloodbath. As you can also see, even in the informal definition of a bloodbath, they gave you an example of how severely depressed the stock market was, that it said a few mutual funds will perform relatively well, even though there's a bloodbath in the stock market. So this is not something that we should have to tell these media outlets. They're familiar with that expression. But as I said, they are not interested in truth and integrity. They are interested in opportunistically finding something that is controversial that they would twist it to represent their interests and try to discredit anything that would discredit Donald Trump. They will seize upon it. And that is exactly the context in which Donald Trump used the expression. It had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with any fighting, any war, any problems, any vengeance, nothing of the sort. But these dangerous people would tie it in to some sort of reprisal if he doesn't win, and tie it in somehow into January 6th. I am telling you, if you do not believe or do not understand how deceptive and how cunning and how dangerous these people are, well, this should actually make it very clear to you. Just imagine the guy was saying something so economically positive. He was talking about the devastating impact of the loss of jobs in the automotive industry when we move those jobs overseas and to Mexico, when we could have these jobs right here in America. But you see, you have to understand, and I keep telling you, the Democrat Party has no platform. I am still waiting for you to tell me 3 major platforms that are beneficial to American people that is part of the Democrat Party. Name it. But when you don't have any platform and someone has a pro-American, America First approach trying to salvage the jobs in America, then what do? You sabotage, you discredit that person. Now, these propagandist outlets, knowing fully well what they were doing, would use and splice Donald Trump's speech in a rally over the weekend where he used the word bloodbath informally to describe a situation that could occur if he didn't get elected and his policies, his economic policies, were not implemented for the betterment of the nation, that it would be a difficult, irreversible economic tragedy. But instead, they tried to tie his use of the word bloodbath to some sort of January 6th style human suffering and confrontation. Now, what was done here can only be described as treacherous and propagandist, and in some respect, sort of incites more division among the American people. It is irresponsible and it is dangerous. And the responsible thing to do by this organization would be a retraction or, at minimum, an apology to the American people. If they intend to maintain any semblance of journalistic integrity, that is the only path going forward. Now let's take a look at what these so-called journalists are saying that Donald Trump said, and luckily there is actually a clip in there of what he actually said.
Over the weekend, including his warning about what will happen if he does not win the election.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath.
And there it is, exactly what he said, that he, as an economic policy, would put tariffs on imported cars in order to promote the domestic automotive industry. But he's talking to his potential voters and he says, look, but I have to get elected for that to happen. And if I don't get elected, then guess what's going to happen? There will be a bloodbath economically. That is what he's saying. That look, none of these policies will be implemented. And he says, look, that's just going to be the tip of the iceberg. Okay? They're going to do worse. And he says, look, that's only going to be the tip of the iceberg. Because guess what's going to happen? That policy would not be implemented. And reversal or opposite policies that are destructive to the American automotive industry and destructive to the American worker will be implemented and will be so severe that it would be a bloodbath economically. My goodness, there's no misinterpretation of what is being said. But hey, now let's listen to their interpretation, their devious and cunning misrepresentation of what he says. And you may be wondering, why am I so passionate about this? And I am passionate because this is exactly the same thing that they did when he made the comment about during COVID about the disinfectant stuff. And we're going to get into that. I'm going to explain to you what he said and what he meant. But first, let's take a look at their twisted misrepresentation of what he said.
The former president also lashed out at migrants and defended January 6 criminals. CBS News campaign reporter Jake Rosen was at that rally. Jake, thanks for joining us. I should clarify with that little bit that we used from the president when he said any car that comes across the line. He's talking about cars that are being imported from outside of the United States to be sold here. We would essentially double the price by the time it gets to the consumer. And then he goes on to talk about a bloodbath if he doesn't win. Jake, the Biden campaign said that former President Donald Trump is essentially doubling down on threats of political violence. And Trump's team said that the comments were taken out of context. So what can you tell us? What were they saying he was trying to say?
Well, Anne-Marie, I think it's important here to kind of think about two different framings of what Trump said. If you're a Trump supporter, or as Donald Trump just defended himself on Truth Social just a couple minutes ago, he claims he was talking about these auto workers and the bloodbath that their industry would face if Joe Biden continues his presidency.
And that is exactly what he said and what he meant. But here it is. Jake Rosen is setting up a lie. He's looking at you with a straight face and he's saying, no, that's not what he meant. Let me tell you what he meant.
I think the big thing here, though, to remember for our audience is that Donald Trump has increased his rhetoric around these January 6th defendants.
And he diverts to January 6th defendants and tries to tie in the bloodbath comment. Now, this guy is amazing. He's a master of deceit. Two unrelated topics. And he tries to tie them in. And he looks at you with a straight face and does it. Now, this guy must think that the people who are looking at that news network are stupid.
And just generally, some of these more inflammatory comments like you just named while he's been on the stump. And so one of these things that he said yesterday obviously was talking about, the bloodbath that he would see, or that you would see if he does not get reelected. And I think,
and that is why when I say that these people are beyond the pale, irredeemable, that is not an understatement. And he goes on to say, oh, obviously, he means that there will be a bloodbath. There will be a bloodbath, but he's trying to play on the word bloodbath to imply that there'll be some sort of reprisal, that there'll be some sort of violence. These people, this is going into the domain of evil. That's the only way you could, that's the only conclusion you could come to. That's evil, irresponsible. That you would be willing to use and incite in some respects the division among the American people, considering how divided the nation is currently, that you will fuel in some respects that division. That is wrong. That is absolutely detestable and wrong.
I think the big thing here is to remember he has basically, talked about the pardoning these hostages on day one, something he talked about earlier last week. He called them hostages again, and as we saw in the rally, he saluted as his campaign played a song featuring the January 6th defendants on Saturday.
That's so important. This is not about one comment. It's about several comments and the broader context. And I think that's really important to sort of keep hammering, Jake. Talk to us more about some of the criticism that he's received for some.
And here it is. Here's the further setup. She says, no, let's not talk about individual comments. Let's talk about all the comments in the broader context. Let's tie it all together. Jake Rosen, come on. That's what she's saying. She's kind of like, lead him down the road. It's like, yeah, let's tie it all in. Let's create this scheme or this plot. And to top it all off, she says, let's take a look at what Mike Pence had to say, Somebody who obviously is not going to have anything good to say about Donald Trump. Obviously, they had a falling out. He was actually a competitor. During the primary. So what is he going to say? What is he really going to say? And Mike Pence doesn't motivate anybody. It's not like he'd be doing Donald Trump a benefit if he gets on board. Mike Pence doesn't have the energy. He doesn't have that sort of energy that motivates anyone. He lacks charisma. So it's not like he's going to be helping Trump's campaign. No way.
So in the meantime, his former running mate, former Vice President Mike Pence, was on Face the Nation yesterday. And to me, he said something really interesting, really sort of what you do not expect a former running mate to say.
Stop the nonsense. Stop being delusional or deliberately pretending to be naive. What do you expect? A former running mate that you've had a falling out with, what do you expect that he or she is going to say? Come on. I'm going
to play some sound.
But I want to be clear that, I've forgiven the president in my heart. I cannot in good conscience endorse Donald Trump this year. Also has to do with the fact that he is walking away, not just from keeping faith with the Constitution on that day, but also, Margaret, with a commitment to fiscal responsibility, a commitment to the sanctity of life, a commitment to American leadership in the world.
This is absolutely an F FOS moment by Mike Pence. It's an FOS moment. What's happening to our leadership in the world right now? Wasn't Joe Biden supposed to be the guy who reestablishes American leadership in the world and creates better relationship with our partners, which was damaged under Trump? We can't even get one of our closest allies and partners to listen to us. They're not even listening to us. That relationship is seemingly soured. So what is he talking about? It's an FOS moment. The bottom line is this. It is obvious that this little snippet of the word bloodbath was taken, misrepresented, misused, twisted to paint a detrimental image of Donald Trump. The Biden campaign initially seized upon the opportunity, seized upon the snippet and the bloodbath fiasco that they created, but realizing that it was so patently false, patently a misrepresentation, patently misleading, that the Biden campaign, and credit to them for good judgment, pulled the ad that they created. They pulled the ad, but it's all symbolic. It doesn't matter. When every single mainstream media has already cycled the story and said, and the headlines are, are very deceptive. Oh, Trump says that there will be a bloodbath if he doesn't get elected. That's all the headlines. Every single mainstream media, that was a headline. Trump said there would be a bloodbath if he didn't get elected. So the damage is already done. It has already been planted in the American psyche. It's brilliant. It's cunning. It's devilish. But it's brilliant. Because the damage is already done. It's already been cycled 1,000 times. And do you think the average American is going to delve into actually what he said? It's to appeal to emotion. That is what they're doing. So, and it's suggestive authority. Is okay, well, it's the media. The media said it. Oh, the news said it. So it must be true. Anyway, I am laughing, but this is deadly serious. It's not even funny. It is wickedly funny, you know? But when you have, and you can depend upon such an organized, such a powerful entity to propagate propaganda on your behalf, then you need not worry. You can make symbolic moves and say, we have decency in politics. We're going to pull the ad. Again, it's just to scope political mileage. Say, look at us now. We're not going to descend into the mud. But you already did it. You already did. And then you can withdraw and, you can retract. But you know that the story will continue. Your propagandist arm will continue the story. So you need not worry. Anyway, I hope you understand. I hope we have exposed the deviousness. I hope we have exposed the masters of cunning and deceit. And I hope we have exposed the dirty tricks. And I hope you would have learned something and you would have educated yourself about all that is taking place. And you will not allow yourselves to be bamboozled by these dangerous deceptors.